that means creating non-stop, perpetual war in the Middle East.
Well, I'm going to make this interesting and disagree with everyone. I do not accept the premise, which probably isn't too much of a surprise, but nonetheless, I reject the premise that the whole point of the so-called war on terror or investing in the Mujahideen was to somehow fight terrorism or to make a better world. I would argue that if you really want to know what's happening with Middle Eastern policy, then you must read Oded Yanan's A Strategy for Israel in the 1980s. Now, in that document, which is pretty much being played out to a T right now and has been for many years, there were serious objectives for Israel. And Israel's main objectives were to expand and grow in line with the Greater Israel Project. And in order for it to do that, there would need to be an excuse to justify the expansion of Israel, and in order to do that, we would have to sow the seeds of sectarian hatred and violence in the region. The #1 target of this plan was Iraq. We've achieved that. That's not a failure. That's actually a success. Iraq is a failed state largely. It is an absolute basket case. Sectarian hatred is absolutely insane. We see the beheadings and all of this madness, and we think it's a disaster. No, it's not at all. In fact, it's all part of the plan to break up Iraq into 3 different states. When we look at Syria, we also find that the goal is once again the same thing: sow the seeds of sectarian hatred and basically turn that nation into a basket case. This is happening according to plan as well. Now, ISIS, funny enough, could stand for the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. Many people are seeing the very big benefits to the state of Israel, the so-called Jewish state of Israel, by the breakup and the balkanization of the surrounding states. So actually, if you believe what's being told to you, and I just don't know why anyone would believe anything that comes out of the mouth of virtually any Western leader, whether it be Obama or Bush or any of the rest of them, all of these people are nothing but patent liars, and everything they say is pretty much the opposite of the truth. So I don't accept virtually anything they say.
Okay, good. Violence. Barack Obama did not bite at the opportunity to get involved in Syria a year ago. In fact, at the time when he was ready to start bombing Assad, just about 13 months ago,
and we have
he backed off as soon as the first excuse came to mind.
We've been supporting ISIS. There is absolute continuity between the policies of Iraq and breaking it up and breaking up Syria as well. It is beyond naive to suggest that the U.S. doesn't have its fingerprints all over ISIS. In fact, tell me this: why has ISIS never once, or al-Nusra Front or al-Qaeda, not once have they attacked Israel? In fact, ISIS militants are getting medical attention in the Golan Heights and in Israel itself. What does that tell you? There is absolute continuity, but the actual policy, just like the Project for a New American Century laid out very clearly, that a, quote, new Pearl Harbor would be necessary to achieve this goal of full spectrum dominance, you could never tell the American people, or the world for that matter, we're going to fight wars of aggression where we're going to have to invade and occupy, we're going to have to spend hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars to achieve the goal of full spectrum dominance, which is to control, absolute control over air, land, sea, and space and cyberspace. The American people never would have bought it, so you can't tell them that. You have to tell them a bunch of lies. And we see this over and over again.
What you have to do, Ken, if I
tried to give the Egyptian people the tools that they needed to speak for their own freedom. I was talking earlier to my good friend Lauren Craner, who's a warrior in this area, and one of the things that we did, for instance, was to give 50% of all American assistance for democracy promotion to groups that were not registered by the Egyptian government. That was right in the face, frankly, of the Egyptian government. And I don't want to embarrass my former boss, President Bush, but there's a reason that Hosni Mubarak never came back to the United States after 2004. Imagine that. The American president cannot get the Egyptian president to come to the United States. There's a reason. And it didn't have to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It had to do with how we were dealing with the Egyptian revolution. And so we used the tools that we had.